The United States of America quarter dollar dated 1984 with a D mint mark, signifying production at the Denver Mint, represents one of the many billions of Washington quarters produced during the late 20th century, but despite its commonness in circulation, it carries with it layers of history, artistry, symbolism, and numismatic intrigue that make it more than just a simple 25-cent coin. The Washington quarter itself was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first president of the United States, and its initial design was the result of a national competition, with sculptor John Flanagan's portrait of Washington being chosen for the obverse, showing the profile of the president facing left with his characteristic tied hair, adapted from a bust by Jean-Antoine Houdon. While the reverse originally depicted a heraldic eagle with wings spread, arrows and olive branches in its talons, and the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. By 1984, this design had been in use for over 50 years, and although collectors had already begun to consider the series routine, it remained a central coin in American commerce, minted in staggering numbers to serve a growing economy, with the Denver Mint alone producing hundreds of millions of them that year. Specifically, about 546 million quarters with a 1984 D designation, making them common in circulated grades but still collectible in pristine condition. The composition of the 1984 quarter reflects the great change in U.S. coinage that began in 1965, when rising silver prices forced the removal of silver from circulating coins. Instead of the earlier 90% silver, 10% copper alloy quarters minted between 1932 and 1964, the 1984 D quarter consists of a copper-nickel-clad composition, with outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its familiar silvery appearance and making it more resistant to wear and everyday use, while at the same time reducing production costs for the U.S. Mint. The obverse of the 1984 D quarter continues to feature Washington's bust, with the inscriptions Liberty at the top, In God We Trust at the left, the date, 1984 below, and the small d mint mark located to the right of Washington's ponytail. The reverse, still unchanged at this time, displays Flanagan Eagle, a strong symbol of American power, vigilance, and unity, set above the denomination and surrounded by inscriptions that emphasize national identity, while the reeded edge provides a tactile feel and also serves a practical anti-counterfeiting function, a practice inherited from earlier centuries when coin shaving or clipping was a real problem. Although millions of 1984 D quarters entered circulation, collectors still pay attention to subtle differences such as strike quality, luster, and errors. For example, some error varieties known for this issue include off-center strikes, double dies, clipped planchets, and die cracks, all of which can command significant premiums among error specialists, depending on severity and eye appeal. While high-grade mint state examples certified by professional grading services like PeaceGS or NGC can reach higher values, particularly in grades MS66 and above, since most of the mintage was used in everyday transactions, leaving relatively few pristine survivors. In terms of numismatic value, the typical 1984 D quarter in circulated condition remains worth only its face value of 25 cents, but in uncirculated or gem condition, collectors may pay anywhere from a few dollars to several $100s depending on rarity of condition, with especially high-end coins displaying full sharpness, clean surfaces, and attractive luster bringing the greatest demand. Beyond monetary value, however, the 1984 D quarter is a reflection of the American economy of the 1980s, a period marked by inflation recovery, a booming stock market, and widespread use of coinage before debit cards and electronic transactions became dominant. Quarters were essential for vending machines, parking meters, toll booths, and arcade games, embedding them deeply into the cultural memory of the era. For many Americans, coins like the 1984 D were not only instruments of commerce, but also physical symbols of national identity, carrying words like liberty and in God we trust into every pocket and every exchange, quietly reinforcing ideals that stretch back to the country's founding. Collectors studying this quarter also find interest in its role within the larger Washington Quarter series, which continued unchanged until the state quarters program launched in 1999, radically transforming America's coinage landscape by replacing the long-familiar eagle reverse with rotating designs celebrating each of the 50 states and later the territories, national parks, and American Women series. Thus, the 1984 D represents the final decade. The United States quarter dollar of 1986, minted at the Denver Mint and therefore bearing the small d mint mark on the obverse, is part of the long-running Washington Quarter series. This coin features the profile of George Washington, the first president of the United States, and has been one of the most widely circulated denominations in U.S. coinage history. The quarter dollar has long held importance not only as currency, but also as a reflection of American identity and artistry in coinage. To understand the 1986 D Washington Quarter in full, it is necessary to look at its historical context, physical specifications, mintage numbers, design details, and its place within the broader scope of U.S. numismatics. The Washington Quarter was originally introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design was the result of a public competition, though it was ultimately awarded to sculptor John Flanagan, whose profile portrait of Washington was selected over that of other noted artists. Flanagan's portrait depicts Washington in a left-facing bust with the inscriptions Liberty at the top and In God We Trust to the left of Washington's neck. On the obverse of the 1986 D quarter, these details remain consistent with the original issue, though decades of striking had resulted in subtle variations depending on die, wear, and production quality. Below Washington's portrait, just above the rim, the date 1986 is prominently displayed, and to the right of the date appears the small d mint mark, signifying that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado. The reverse side of the coin features an American bald eagle, wings spread wide, clutching a bundle of arrows in its talons with two olive branches beneath. This classic heraldic design, also by John Flanagan, is symbolic of both American strength and peace, showing the eagle prepared for defense yet resting on symbols of unity. The inscriptions on the reverse include United States of America across the top, E pluribus unum beneath the eagle, and the denomination quarter dollar across the bottom rim. For coins of 1986, this design was struck in high numbers for circulation, and while the artistry is simple compared to later commemorative or state quarters, it retains strong national symbolism. From a technical standpoint, the 1986 D Washington Quarter was composed of the standard copper-nickel-clad composition that had been adopted in 1965 after the removal of silver from most circulating U.S. coins. Its specifications include a weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and a reeded edge. The outer layers are a mixture of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. This composition gave the coin durability for circulation and helped the U.S. mint keep production costs down compared to the earlier 90% silver quarters minted before 1965. The Denver Mint produced over 504 million quarters in 1986, making this coin a very common issue in circulation. As a result, most 1986 D quarters encountered today hold only face value unless they are in uncirculated or high-grade condition. When examining the coin's numismatic value, it is clear that the 1986 D quarter is not considered rare in circulated form. Billions of Washington quarters were struck in the 1980s, and high mintage figures ensure that these coins remain readily available. In well-worn condition, such as grades good G4 through extremely fine XF40, the coin generally trades only at face value of 25 cents. However, for collectors seeking high-end examples, uncirculated coins graded mint state, MS 60 and above, can be worth modest premiums. Coins that are graded MS 65 or higher with brilliant luster, minimal contact marks, and sharp strikes are more desirable and can fetch a few dollars on the collector market. Exceptional gems graded MS 67 or higher are significantly scarcer and can sometimes bring values of $100 or more, depending on eye appeal and demand. Additionally, coins with errors, such as double dies, off-center strikes, or other minting anomalies may carry premium values among error coin enthusiasts. The presence of the D mint mark is also an important aspect. In 1986, quarters were produced both at the Philadelphia Mint, with a P mint mark, or none at all for proof strikes earlier in the series, and the Denver Mint, D. Philadelphia struck approximately 551 million quarters that year, while Denver produced around 504 million, making both mintages plentiful. Still, for a collector assembling a complete date and mint mark set of Washington quarters, it is necessary to include the 1986 D alongside its Philadelphia counterpart. The San Francisco Mint also struck a limited number of proof coins in 1986, which were not intended for circulation but sold directly to collectors. These proof issues, featuring mirror-like fields and frosted devices, were struck in both copper-nickel and 90% silver compositions, making them more valuable and collectible than regular circulation strikes. In the larger historical context, the 1986 D quarter sits near the end of the Washington quarter's original, bald eagle reverse, era, which lasted from 1932 until 1998. Just over a decade later, in 1999, the U.S. Mint would introduce the massively popular 50-state quarters program, which replaced the eagle design with rotating state-themed reverses. As such, the 1986 D represents part of the last generation of classic Washington quarters that many older Americans remember using regularly before the explosion of new designs. This gives coins like the 1986 D some nostalgic value, even if they are not particularly rare. From a collector's perspective, the 1986 D Washington quarter is often considered an accessible entry point into U.S. coin collecting. Beginners can easily find examples in circulation, and those looking for higher-grade specimens can often purchase them inexpensively from coin shops or online. The coin also serves as an educational piece, illustrating how U.S. coinage evolved in composition, production, and design over time. Some collectors pursue full rolls or bags of uncirculated 1986 D quarters, often saved by banks or individuals at the time, and these can still be found on the secondary market. In conclusion, the 1986 D United States quarter dollar, bearing the word Liberty above Washington's portrait and struck in copper-nickel clad at the Denver Mint, is a common yet historically significant piece of U.S. coinage. While it holds only minimal monetary value above its 25-cent face value in most cases, its importance lies in its role as part of the enduring Washington Quarter series, its connection to American history and symbolism, and its accessibility for collectors. Whether studied for its design, its production numbers, its mint mark significance, or its place in the broader narrative of American coinage, the 1986 D quarter remains a tangible link to both the everyday commerce of the 1980s and the artistic traditions of U.S. minting that date back to the 1930s. For numismatists, historians, and casual collectors alike, it offers a fascinating window into a specific year of American coin production, while also reminding us of the lasting legacy of George Washington as the face of the quarter dollar. The United States quarter dollar of 1988, bearing the P mint mark, which signifies that it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, is part of the Washington Quarter series, one of the most familiar coins in circulation. The Washington Quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. Originally intended as a one-year commemorative issue, the design proved so popular that it became a permanent replacement for the standing Liberty Quarter. By 1988, the Washington Quarter had already been in production for more than half a century, becoming an everyday part of American commerce and a key piece of modern numismatics. The obverse of the coin prominently features the bust of George Washington, sculpted by John Flanagan based on a bust by French sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon. The word Liberty arches across the top, a hallmark of American coinage, while the date, 1988, rests at the bottom, and the phrase "In God We Trust" sits to the left of Washington's profile. The mint mark P, representing the Philadelphia Mint, appears just to the right of the ribbon tying Washington's hair. Prior to 1980, Philadelphia-issued quarters typically bore no mint mark, so collectors note that post-1980 Philadelphia quarters, including the 1988 P issue, clearly display the P. The reverse design of the 1988 P quarter retains the Flanagan eagle motif that had been used since 1932. The reverse shows a heraldic-style eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, a classical image symbolizing readiness to defend the nation, while flanked below by two olive branches, representing peace. Above the eagle, the words United States of America and the motto E pluribus unum, out of many one, appear, while the denomination quarter dollar is written along the bottom rim. The combination of martial readiness and peace imagery underscores America's identity during the late 20th century, a Cold War era in which the nation emphasized both strength and diplomacy. This design remained unchanged until 1999, when the U.S. Mint introduced the 50-state quarters program, making the 1988 P one of the last pre-statehood Washington quarters. Compositionally, the 1988 P Washington quarter is a clad coin, meaning it is made of two different metals fused together. From 1932 until 1964, Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, but in response to rising silver prices and public hoarding during the early 1960s, the Mint changed the composition in 1965 to a copper-nickel clad alloy. Thus, the 1988 quarter contains an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, resulting in a total weight of 5.67 grams, a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and a reeded edge. This sandwich metal look, visible when viewing the edge of the coin, has become a hallmark of post-1965 circulating U.S. coinage. For many Americans in the 1980s, the presence of clad coinage was so routine that fewer people thought about the silver quarters that had disappeared from circulation just 2 decades earlier. The mintage of the 1988 P quarter was very high, reflecting the Mint's need to supply billions of quarters for vending machines, pay phones, arcade games, and daily commerce in an era before credit cards and digital payments dominated small transactions. The Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 562 million quarters in 1988 alone, making this issue common in circulation and in uncirculated rolls and bags. Because of this large mintage, most 1988 P quarters hold little or no premium above face value in circulated grades, unless they exhibit a dramatic mint error or are preserved in pristine, high-grade condition. Collectors seeking gem-quality examples often turn to mint sets, which were produced specifically for collectors with superior strike quality. Quarters graded by services like PeaceGS or NGC at MS67 or higher can carry meaningful premiums, as such grades are difficult to achieve due to the heavy handling these coins received during mass production. Errors and varieties add intrigue to the 1988 P quarter. Like many coins of the modern clad era, minor die cracks, die clashes, and off-center strikes occasionally appear. Some collectors search for repunched mint marks or double dies, though none are widely recognized for 1988 as major varieties. The most notable and desirable examples involve striking errors such as off-centers, broad strikes, or double-struck coins, which can sometimes sell for hundreds of dollars depending on severity and eye appeal. Since the coin was mass-produced, quality control occasionally slipped, allowing these interesting pieces to enter circulation. Culturally, the 1988 P quarter represents late Cold War America, a time of political change and economic growth. The coin circulated alongside other iconic U.S. coins like the Lincoln Memorial Cent and Jefferson Nickel, each bearing designs that had remained unchanged for decades. In vending machines, laundromats, toll booths, and arcade cabine,